takes a second for YouTube to get going.
Yep.
Wow, people are jumping in. Yay. It'll be just a couple minutes as we get everything set up. Okay, and turn off the, there we go. All right, YouTube is live. Aha. All right, I just had to double check, make sure I had my dogs in the crate. Okay, I'm good. Oh, I always make sure my computer and my phone are on do not disturb. So I don't get any annoying. There we go, do not disturb. Perfect. All right, be sure to use the key. 2 seconds.
So you let me know when we should start.
Yep, absolutely. About just 60 seconds and we'll get going. Yes, we know we're live. We're getting everything set. We will get going. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Hi, I'm Pamela with Rhodolite, and it's our next installment of our webinar series with our Master of Lights, which has been an absolute joy in this time of the craziness in the world. And today with us, so Dirk is on vacation and Rod had something come up last minute. So we're so happy. It's super last minute. We have Rebecca. Rebecca, yay. So you're the press assistant, right?
Yes. So whenever you see posts on social media, that's me. And whenever you message the pages, that's also me. So yeah, hi everyone.
And we've already given her a hard time about not having light in her video. So
sadly couldn't get via Titan last minute.
Yep. I know. You literally had 10 minutes before coming on here. So it was super last minute. So thank you. Rebecca's going to be moderating the questions, and be sure to put those questions in the Q&A form. That way we can keep track of what's been answered and what's not been answered. Feel free to use the chat to tell us where you are, you know, that sort of thing, because it's always fun to see where everybody in the world is when they join us. But the most important thing about today's webinar is our wonderful and talented guest, Peter. Peter, I am so bad at pronouncing last names, and that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you before we got started. How do you say your last name?
It's an umlaut, as you know. It's called Müller.
I wouldn't know. So
it's very German. It's like Smith in the US. So it's a very, very common name. Probably my name, Peter, and Müller, with the combination, you will probably find 2 or 3 million people in Germany with this name.
Oh, wow. I love history and learning about that. So obviously you're out of Germany and you work alongside alongside Jean Noir, which we interviewed 2 weeks ago. And, you know, your imagery with black and white and with minimal retouching and how you capture it and how you use the lights is going to be an exciting webinar today as we see a bit into your process. So Peter, go ahead and introduce yourself a bit.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'm with Rhodolite now for almost 6 years. I had my first ANOVA in 2014, introduced by Greg Gorman to me, and that was the first generation. And since then, I worked with the lights. I'm right now here in my Noir studio, which I share with John together. It's a daylight studio, so all my imagery is in natural light or ambient light. But in combination with continuous lights if it's needed. So just to perhaps shorten one question in the beginning, I don't use any reflectors or diffusers or anything. I'm a lonesome cowboy normally, so I don't work with the team, I work on my own. So if you have a reflector or sun bouncer or something else, you need normally a second person to keep it for you. And that's, if you're alone, you don't have that person, but you have a stand and have a rotor light and a battery. So I can use this light everywhere in the world where I've ever been. And I travel the world with the EOS. So normally I fly with 2 EOS around the world and use them wherever I need. And we will have later on some pictures which were done in LA, and one was done in Milano. So
I just have to say, traveling with rotolights over the previous softbox lights, strobes, you name it, is just, it's like, it's life-changing. You know, if any of you have had to travel through airports with gear, wow, like it's, you know.
Yeah. And they fit in the luggage which you can take on the plane. So they're small enough. The EOS are small enough to go in the suitcase which you can put on board. And you need the batteries anyway on board, so you have everything with you. So it's pretty simple. It was never stopped by something like that. And yeah, but I shoot, as you said, I shoot more or less out of cam. My camera, my setting is RAW plus JPEG, and everything you normally see on Instagram from me or the pictures I publish are the JPEGs, and I work on the JPEGs. It's
oh wow!
Very seldom then I use a RAW to convert it to black and white. It's only that my JPEG is so rotten that I can't use it, and I have to use the RAW to restore the final picture again and get some more information. But 89%, 98% of my frames on Instagram, something else, are the JPEGs out of the camera.
And JPEG has come a long way from, you know, with cameras. You know, before, when JPEG was, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, JPEGs weren't, you know, it was never something you really wanted to work with. And then when RAW came out, everybody was like jumping on it. But then there was still a few people like, why am I moving to RAW? Everything I have is in JPEG, and it's not like I'm putting this on a massive billboard.
No, I have, and even though I print my pictures on my own, so I have the Nikon D5. I'm a very old-fashioned guy, still working with this heavy gear, and the Nikon JPEG in monochrome is fantastic. Everyone asks for the look, says, how do you do it? It's just the Nikon monochrome, and it's very flat. So I take, there's no contrast in it, there's no sharpening in it. So I take the frame out of the camera very flat. So lots of grays, less blacks, because I can add contrast to my frame later on in the JPEG, but to decrease the blacks makes them very blurry and everything. So if you are familiar with the Ansel Adams grayscale, which goes from 1 to 10, my JPEG out of camera has the 1 to 9. It's in there. So only total black is missing.
Wow. Selfishly, I'm so excited to put my camera into RAW plus JPEG and practice with some of the black and white. I love it.
So, the one-digit Nikons allow you go in the monochrome settings, and you can change the monochrome settings as well. It's the same with the Canon. You can do that there as well. And the basic settings are higher contrast and more sharpening. So if you decrease everything, you will get a very flat file, but you will see you're gonna love it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Well, let's jump into some of your images.
Yes.
So let me get this screen shared.
I have one question first before we jump in. Sorry, we've got so Marco in the Q&A is asking, what program do you use to convert your images to black and white?
As I said before, and normally I don't have to change my pictures to black and white because they come out of the camera black and white. So I use the JPEGs monochrome already. But if I have to do it, Lightroom is my tool of choice. I don't use Photoshop. So I do everything in Lightroom. But in Lightroom, I use still Silver FX Pro, which is now with, it was with Google in between, but Silver FX Pro is my convert program if I have to convert a frame in black and white, if I have to take the RAW and switch it to black and white. Because there I have also the film grains from the past. I can choose a T-Max or I can choose whatever. And I created some presets for myself for certain situations, harsh sunlight outside, soft light inside, or whatever. So I have probably 8 to 10 presets, which I reuse.
Cool, lovely, thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see. Can you see the image that I have up here? Or am I on it?
Cut, and you see on the right side the information. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So this
what you see here is, Rebecca, I love to shoot in cars or with cars. And as you can see, this is a Eldorado, the biggest car which was ever built, 1954. It's about 7-something meter long, and it has lots of space inside. So we will have later on a second picture of this where I'm sitting in the rear seat and shooting. It's still enough space to shoot inside, you know. So what is special here is, as you can see, I shoot through the window. You can see, and half of a window is still a part of the reflection. But what you don't see here is that around the girl are 3 rhodolites involved. One is on the right side where it comes from the driver's side through the window. The window is open, as you can see. One is more or less above me going through the windshield here, but it's higher, so I have no reflection in it. And one comes from the left side, so where the not the driver, the other seat. What's the name for it? The
passenger
seat.
Yes.
So there are 3 rhodolites involved, but if you look at her, you don't see any reflection on her body or everything of the light. If you're really scrolling in, you see in her eyes a little tiny white spot, and that's the light from the driver's side, which you could see here. Rebecca, if you would take this one picture I showed you where it's a different frame, but where we can see the rhodolite where it stands.
Yes, I know which one you mean.
Pamela, sorry.
Yes. All right, let's see if I can, let me pull that one up. Share screen. It's taking me a second to get back to it. Let's see, we want that one. Okay. Where did it go? There we go, there. Because I had it in a separate browser, so it took a minute to figure out where it went on my computer. So the second one, which is this one right here. Let me get that.
The one where you could see the rhodolite in the left door.
The rhodolite in the left door?
Okay. One, where you see the same girl, but you see the light in the going through the door.
Let's see. Okay. 2 seconds. Usually it doesn't take me this long to pull them up. Zoom, share screen.
11 if you're looking for it.
There we go. So
yeah, that is the second one, but just check already. There's a third one with the car.
Okay.
For the audience, this is the same picture where I told you I'm sitting in the rear and shooting with a wide angle. You're looking for this one here, Rebecca.
This one right here. There we go.
Here you can see what I just, you see one of the rhodolites. Where is it placed? So in the picture before, which you saw, it's standing at the same position. So the light is going through a little bit of the front window and through the side window on her. And everything I use to create my pictures is that I try to cut the pictures during the shooting, as well as that I light the pictures in a way that you don't see that there's artificial light involved. I always try to get the imagery, the idea of that we're talking about ambient light. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So every time I try that you don't see additional light or added light into my picture. So as you could see here, I used that frame here just to show you where one of the rhodolites was standing during the shooting. So Pamela, if you go back to the color picture, which we had before.
Yep. Let's go back to that one, this one.
Yeah. What you see here, you can see now on the rim light of her head, you saw where the rhodolite was standing, and now you see the rim light around her head, where it comes from. Yeah. So that's the rhodolite on the left side. There's one rhodolite, and you can see it in her eyes now, which is coming from the passenger side. And again, I had one behind me. You can see the reflections on her on the zipper, which is on the down left of the frame.
Mhm.
Here, exactly. That's the rhodolite which is behind me. So I'm sitting in the rear seat and have one EOS with me more or less over my shoulders. This is how I created the whole picture. What you see if you look through the front window, that's the car is standing in a garage with ugly cars and ugly light. So I'm used always shoot with open lens. So it's 2.8. This whole frame is shot with 2.8, that you don't see all the dirt in the garage through the front window. Yeah. So because otherwise you could see that there was a new car in it, that there's you see the front light, the daylight coming through the open garage door and everything. So um, I shoot inside here. I needed 3 lights to light this frame as it is right now.
It's
Any
gorgeous.
questions with this?
Cool. So one question, Ingo, apologies if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Do you pre-adjust the lighting before you start working, so the setup is already tested before you start shooting?
Put it this way, I tried to mix the same lights, which means in this garage we had neon lights, which are pretty cold. So the benefit of the rhodolites is that I can dial the light temperature to the ambient light temperature, you know? So what I do is to answer Inger's question is um, I try to mix all the lights together, that not the artificial lights, so the rhodolites, become like a key light, which is visible as the main light or so. So when you looked at both frames which you saw, which we had before, as I said before, I try to use the dim possibilities of the rhodolite, that you don't have the feeling there is, let's say, a strobe on her or some harsh a spot or something on her. So I try to dim them that it's a very even light, that you don't see the neon lights which come from the rooftop of the garage, the daylight which comes out of the open door of the garage, and the rhodolites. They all are adjusted to each other, that it becomes a very flat or common light, that you don't see there's somewhere a light source which is brighter than anything else, you know? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move over to the hotel series.
Yes.
And I have that one. I made sure it was prepped, so it's an easy. So this one with the sunset in the background, that car, just everything about this just screams this old Hollywood type.
Exactly, and that is what we had in mind. We rented a old film set above Hollywood. It's in Palmdale. It's a movie set from the 60s. A famous horror crime story was shot there, and we had about 10 or 15 minutes to keep the sunset, which you see on the left corner, in the frame. Otherwise, it was gone, and before it was too bright. Yeah. So and what you see here is it's a very difficult light situation, because we have ambient light with the sunset. We have blue light from the motel sign. You will see later on the frame of the behind the scene, there's also yellow and green light coming from the right side of the frame. And I use 2 rhodolites to lighten the 2 artists here in the situation. And again, the benefit of the rhodolite was here, that I was able to dim the lights to a combination that you don't see an artificial light on them. It could be, at least it's my impression, and you can tell me that I'm wrong, but it could be the ambient light around the motel, which is lightening the 2 models here in front of the car. Yeah. So and Rebecca, if you show us now the making up to that.
Okay.
You find it.
Yes. Yeah. It just takes me a minute to get out of full screen, and because it doesn't like to. There we go. Open up. Perfect. And share screen. And open.
Okay, here's the situation.
Wow.
So you see the 2 rhodolites. You see on the right upper corner, right up. the door barns of the second light, and you see on the below the first light. Yeah.
Are these ANOVAs?
Both are novas.
Yeah.
As a cross light, so they both go here, and then you see what I told you. There's the blue and the green also. So you see all these the mixed light which we had, this light situation which we had here, and the two ANOVAs are probably about 60 to 70%, and I try, and then now goes back to Inga's question before, is I had to test which color temperature was the best in this mixed situation, you know, because as I said, we have the sunset in the back, we have a little bit ambient light. It was the blue hour, so we have a little bit still ambient light, but we have the blue motel light, which is neo light, and we have this green light, which is also there. And the picture you saw from me was just a tiny little bit adjusted in Lightroom to the colors, but it was more or less, again, out of camera, which you saw.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. Okay, let me get back
While
to...
Pam's pulling another image up, Alan asked in the Q&A, how do you use the Neo 2 in your portraiture?
Yeah, perhaps we show the Neo picture from Milan, Pamela.
Okay. Should we go ahead and do the BTS first?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. And share screen.
So here's the Neos. I have to be honest, since the EOS are out, I'm not traveling with the Neos very often anymore. Because in the beginning, I was traveling with 3 Neos as a set. And you could see here in Milan, we were working on the balcony here, and you will see the frame later on. And as you could see, it was sunny outside. And you can see on both Neos that they are 100%, just to give more or less a very strong light on her to go against the very bright daylight. And if you show the frame.
Yeah, oh yeah, this one. And share screen.
So this is one of the pictures which I took there. And as you could see is, you see on the right side, on the left side, the balcony. So if you remember where she was standing. So what I used the 2 Neos here really to get enough light on her, again, to work against the sunlight, to get this dramatic light on her. So because what I could do now is to really bring my camera to very dark mode, so that I have no highlights in her hair from the sunshine side, yeah? Because otherwise it would be burned out. And what I wanted to do was to use the light from the left side as well as from the right side, more or less to have an even light situation and to bring it down really to this very intense and dark setting. Yeah.
Oh, the shadows look amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
And also from Alan, do you gauge the correct color temperature using a meter, or do you just do it by eye?
I'm no, either not. The thing is, my camera, all settings in my camera on manual. Yeah. So also my white balance. I put my camera is fixed on 5600K white balance, which is daylight temperature, what normally said. So in this case, if I'm working on 5600K, I'm putting also the Neos or the ANOVAs on 5600K. Yeah. Only if I know, for instance, that if you go in a street in Milano or a city and all the street lights in today's times are tungsten lights, 3200, 3300K. If I know it by heart, then I put my camera on 3000 through 200K and put the rhodolites on 3200K. So again, as soon as I know what light situations I have, again, I try to bring also everything on the same niveau or on the same balance.
Cool. Thank you, Peter. Sorry, one last one.
Oh, yeah.
The black and white shot from inside the car that we showed earlier, do you recall what lens you used to shoot that?
Yeah, my favorite lens and my, let's say, 95% lens is the 2.870 by 200 from Nikon. I rather find a spot where I can step back, because I prefer to shoot always with 200. So the only thing is, like when I was in the car, I used the wide angle, the other shot of in the car, because that doesn't make sense with the 200. I would kill the girl with the lens. But everything else I normally shoot, and also the frame we saw before was shot with 200. You saw that when I was sitting in this other frame in front of a motel, it was also the 70 by 200.
Cool.
I rather
Thank you very much.
further back to use this lens instead of going to a different lens.
Cool. Thanks,
Yeah.
Peter.
It's great lens. Great lens.
Yeah.
So
okay. What I like to show you here is something very special you can do, in my opinion, only with rhodolites or only with artificial light, which is dimmable. If you can dim it, you can do it. The thing is, what you see here is a situation, and the making of, you will see a second picture afterwards, is this was in my living room. First of all, you see the guy smoking, and to take these pictures, he killed probably a package of cigarettes. My wife wasn't there, and when she came home, she almost killed me, because in our living room, it was like, yes, okay. But I used my living room because I could get it totally dark, because to do that, you need 100% dark room, and I can close the windows of my studio. And then I used a projector and took old frames, which I downloaded from the internet, and to give me a backdrop. Rebecca, if you can show the picture of the lady.
let's see here. This one.
Okay.
Come on. There we go.
Again, my living room, and my what you see here is a famous photo, which is called New York Central Station 1933, and I put that on with the projector on a screen. And what I did is I measured first the light on this projector light. So the first picture I took without the lady, to find the right adjustments in my camera to take a picture of this picture. And then I put her in the frame and dialed the rhodolite as long, so to find out that both lights, the projector light and the rhodolites, are on the same level, so that you don't have the feeling she's not in this train station. She could be on a balcony, and she looks from the balcony down to New York Central Station. That was the whole idea. It was shot with a 1.485 lens with open lens 1.4, because I wanted to have as less sharpness and try to mesh the focuses, so that you don't see that she isn't in there, because the main topic is here that you don't get the feeling she's not in that train station. But as sharper the background is, as sooner you find out that this is a screen. Yeah, and it's not a picture. But again, it's a total dark room, and I had to lit her with, I think, 2 rhodolites, one from the left side. You can see on her eyes, on the left and both eyes, you see one reflection of the rhodolite, and there was a second light coming from, let's say, above her head from the right side. So what you see is the reflection on the right side on her hair, and that is from the other rhodolite. Yeah.
That goes quite nicely into a couple of questions that we have.
Yes.
You kind of answered this a little bit already, but Jeffrey and Bruce are both asking about what ISO settings you were using, and also the shutter speed as well. Okay.
On these frames, I was using about 1600 or 1200 ISO. I'm not afraid of ISO. I'm also shoot with 3200 or 6400 if needed. For black and white, it's okay. For color, if you really want to have a good shot in color, my recommendation is don't go above 2000 ISO, because then you lose some sharpness and some intensity. But for black and white, it's fine. Yeah. and the shutter speed is always about 400 or faster, because I'm an old man and I'm shaking my hands. So and this picture here especially was shot with the 810, not with the D5, and the 810 has about 36 megapixels and is very, very picky about shaking. So you don't see it on the backside of your monitor, but if you see it on the computer later on, that there's a tiny little bit of shaking if I personally go below 250.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
same.
do you also use barn doors on the lights when you're shooting?
You could see on the frames at the motel. Yes, I do. I also have soft boxes for the rhodolites. Rhodolites come with own soft boxes, which you can put in front of it. Only the, you can see the Titan behind me. It has a soft box built in. But most of the time I use the barn doors to, yeah, how do you say, to give the light a little more direction. But as I said, most of the time I have one barn door free and one barn door with a softbox in front of it.
Cool. Couple more questions. On the projector shot, did you deliberately make the projection out of focus, or was that caused by low aperture?
Yeah, that was caused by low aperture on purpose. Perhaps Rebecca, you can still ask the question, but Pamela, can you put this one frame behind the scenes in?
Yeah, I was on it.
The other one, no, the other one behind the scenes. There's one picture where you can see go down beside this portrait.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, what you see here to the guy who answered the question is, this is the set of the guy with the cigarette. You can see his microphone, you can see the old tape, and then you see the movie Good Night and Good Luck. That's a screenshot from the movie Good Night and Good Luck. You see this old CBS camera in the back. And
yeah.
And yes, you could see, I didn't have a good screen, so that's a blanket. And this blanket has some, you can see has some knits and everything inside. So I couldn't make this thing sharp, because then you would see how bad it looks, you know? So this is why I shot the frame with 1.4 open lens, that you don't see the shit, you know? Sorry for that.
And then one final question. What is the mood like at your shootings? So Philippe says, I understand you shoot with a minimal team. Do you use music? How do you get your models into the right mood for these shots if the background is fake?
Yes, this is perhaps at the end, Pamela, we will show a little movie.
Yeah.
I'm very enthusiastic when I work. I was taught by Greg Gorman. Really, he's the best teacher I ever had in my life. His main emphasis was talk to the talent, talk to the talent. What I do is I implement my idea of the picture in the head while talking and coaching the model to move. What you see here was, she wasn't standing there, she was moving. I asked her to turn, to stand, to move, to switch, bring the hands up, bring the down. And all that leads to a situation where the model is so concentrated on listening to me and try to deliver what I want, that she becomes to her natural movements, because she cannot pose anymore, because she's so concentrating on all the guidance I give to her, that she comes to, you know, people under stress go in the situation that you do reflexes. You work, everything you do is your normal movement. It's the way how you would move, yeah? And know how you should move, yeah? So, and I put the models with all my guidance, everything in a positive stress, because they want to deliver what I want. I really push them. If someone really worked with me and you saw what I'm doing, it's really, I can shoot 4 minutes, 3 minutes in a row. I in this time, I shoot probably 300 or 400 pictures in this 2 or 3 minutes on high speed. But I'm don't take my camera off my eyes. Have the camera on my front of my head, talking through the camera to the girl and tell her, more left, more right, up, down. And I said, that's great, more intensity. Give me your eyes, and so on. And so and always I get the feedback that they like it, that I really push them to the peak. Yeah.
Yes,
So
you see
I
so
don't-
many photographers out there who don't give that direction, and the models aren't sure what to do, so they do their own thing, but then it's not the story you want to tell. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And the thing
yeah.
is, to be honest, some people very use music for it, but music would disturb that. So I normally have music in the background, but very low. It's just like I love music, but it's not part of my energy for the frame. But what you said, Pamela, is the absolute important thing, a lessons learned I only can enforce everyone who's listening here. Talk to your talents and talk intensely and tell them what you do. Show them your pictures. So often models tells me, oh, you show me the pictures? I never get shown the pictures. I said, why not? How do you know what I see?
Yeah.
What I do is I take 300 or 400 pictures in one set. Bam, 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 bam. We play the set for 2-3 minutes. I show the model the pictures. I tell her, look, this is exactly what I was looking for. But here, can you see your eyes are too small? I need more attention. So she sees what I see. She gets my idea of the picture in her head, and then we do a second round. So I describe myself as the director and cameraman in one position, because a model never knows what's in my head. And if I didn't tell her, then let give you one story. I had the pleasure to have some dinners with Peter Lindbergh, and he once said, the thing is, if you don't talk to your models and if you don't build a relationship to your models, you never get your special picture. And a special picture is the phone. He described it this way. He says, if you have $20,000, you call the agent of Kate Moss. She comes around, you put her on close, and as soon as Kate Moss sees the camera, she is Kate Moss. And you probably take a wonderful picture where everyone says, hey, great, it's a picture of Kate Moss. If you don't talk to her, you still have a picture of Kate Moss. If all your 3 bodies does exactly the same and no one talks to her, they all have the same picture. Because Kate Moss can look like Kate Moss for $20,000. If you start talking to her and pushing her to the limit, taking her off her comfort zone, whatever, then you get a picture of Kate Moss, which is your picture of Kate Moss and not the ones everyone was taking of her who's not talking to her. So, and I can tell you, I shoot with commercial models, I shoot with young models, I shoot with elderly models, man, woman, it's everywhere the same story. As more experienced they are, as more they are in their comfort moves, they know their money shot, they know what the clients love, they know their money face. So, and every time I know from a good model what's their money face, and I hate that. And as soon as they offer to me, I stop shooting. It says, this is I don't want, because this picture is taken by everyone else before. So as a photographer, if you don't talk to the models, if you don't push them, if you really enforce them to give you something else, you get all the frames they give to someone else. You don't get your special frame. So, and perhaps this in a situation is, as I said, the models are always moving. And that's one of the reasons, again, Pamela, you asked that before, why don't you work with bouncers or reflectors or everything is, to get models acting, I need a certain room. Let's say in Germany, we say I need a space of, let's say, 6 to 8 square meters. Yeah, so, and what I have to do is I have to create a lighting scene where all the light in the square is good enough to work in it. Yeah, so if she moves a little more left, I have to make sure that I have enough light. She moves too much right, I have enough light. If she walks towards me, I have enough light. If she walks away from me, I have enough light. And you cannot do that with a reflector. Or you have a fellow running back and forth, but you need something to reflect. And in this, it's very seldom that you have enough sunlight or light to really get a reflection on a body. So but with the rotor lights, I'm able to use 2 or 3 lights to create a light set, which allows me to get the person in this set in even light to work in it. Yeah.
Great advice.
Thank
Absolutely
you,
needed advice. Yes, yes. I think we wanted to move to the.
So we can use one of the next pictures.
Yes, yes, yes. Let me go to. Yeah. Aha. This is the BTS.
Yeah. Okay, that's the BTS. What you see here is John. He's a carpenter in Norway. So it was a very special workshop we had in Norway with Greg. We took people off the street, no models. We just picked people off the street who had an interesting face. It was in a small town called Kristiansand. It's, I think, about 150 kilometers above Bergen. So you're in the middle of Norway, on the coast city. And he's, how you say that? A ship maker, ship carpenter. So he built ships.
A carpenter.
Carpenter
Yeah.
for ships. So
Yeah.
he was about 60, 70 years old. Interesting face, absolutely. And as you could see here is, we were in a museum, and you see the rhodolite on the right corner. You see this person here, and then you see the rhodolite on the right corner. You see the plaques on the other side to block the light. So you see someone keeping a plaque here to take off all the additional lights. And if you go now on the frame, Pamela.
So going to this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why does it do that?
So the light situation which you saw is not the light situation for that picture, because I changed exactly the light. I took the light on the left side and took the black on the right side. Yeah. But I only have this one behind the scene picture of this frame. So what you see here is, and then you see here again, I used that for a typical male photography, where you very often use the one side very dark, the other side well lit, and you have a little bit the idea of the Rembrandt window below his face, below his eye. And for the audience, this picture was shot by 12,800 ISO.
Wow.
But not on purpose. The thing is, the Nikon has one downside. If you push the wrong button at the wrong time, it goes on auto ISO. So, and I was so engaged that I was wondering, okay, why can't I go up to 8,000 with the speed? And I didn't really look at it, because I thought there's not so much light, but I changed my light always. And at the end, when I came home and I looked at the frames, it says, oh, there's lots of grain in it. Then I found out that I was shot with 12,800, because in auto ISO, I didn't limit it to a certain amount. It was the basic setting in my camera, and it allowed me to go to everywhere. So nevertheless, I printed this frame on a DIN A2, which is by, what is it, 80 by 90, 60 by 90 centimeters. Wow. And it doesn't, the grain doesn't harm the picture at all. So just to give you an idea how we do that with one light and a black to really make a typical male portrait.
That's beautiful. And it's a lesson learned that it's okay to, we're all going to make mistakes like that. And we're human, and our cameras are amazing.
I would be upset, but for black and white, it doesn't matter at all, in my opinion. I just left the last Lindbergh exhibition in Hamburg, and there are frames blown up where you really go with your nose. You can see every pixel by itself, yeah, because they were shot on film. If you blow a film from the past up to 1 to 2 meters, you see every piece of grain, yeah. But who is with his nose on a picture? Normally you step back 3 or 4 meters to look at a big picture, and then you don't see any grain anymore. Very simple.
Well, and looking at some of the old photographs from, back in the beginning ages of pictures, you notice a lot of it is out of focus. It's grainy, but we feel the story that's still being told.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you look at you go in the Museum of Modern Art to their photography part, some of the pictures are technically absolutely crazy. Cartier-Bresson, his famous picture in Paris where this one person jumps from one board over the other board in lots of water on the street. It's unsharp, it's against the light, it's totally dark, but it's hanging in a museum. Yeah, one of his famous frames, you see a biker, you see a chair like this, stairs like this in Paris, and you see a biker going down, and you see only a part of the biker, but it's famous picture. Yeah, half of Peter Lindbergh's pictures are unsharp, but on purpose. He said he very often shot with 160 or 140 to give the intensity to the frame that there is, because this tiny little bit sharpness or this tiny little bit out of focus gives the picture even more emotion. But I'm not at that point. I love a little bit. I don't have to copy everything, to be honest.
So, Rebecca, did we have any questions?
Yes, just one question before we move on. How does your workflow change when you're shooting with the Titan compared to how you shoot with the EOS or the Neo 2?
The workflow, to be honest, doesn't change a lot because the Titan allowed me something which I didn't do before the Titan was there. For some of the frames, I need a very flat light, and before the Titan was there, I was working with Kino flows. So I needed a very flat square light, which is 120 by something. And because what I use that to prolong the light from the windows to, and the Neos as well as the ANOVAs, they are point sources, you know, and they allow you at a certain amount, you have a certain light like this, and then it's fading out. But if you want a very flat light, like the window light is coming this way, and normally window light goes in the angle the sun is there, so means even if the first 2 meters of your studio is very well lit, 1 meter out of this light already is about 2 or 3 f-stops less light before. So what I do is I prolong the light by this flat light. In the early days before the Titan, I used the Kino flows to exactly give me an additional meter. So I have 3 meters of even light because I lit the last meter where it had where I lost 3 f-stops to add these 3 f-stops back to the light. And now I can do that exactly with the Titan. The Titan allows me to do exactly that, prolong my flat light out of the window to have a very special light. And so I use the Titan most of the time to do full body shots, to use it to give me seating shots, or where I want, especially where I use mixed shadows and harsh lights together. I use the Titan especially for that. So I don't use the Titan for everything. For little portraits and everything, I still work with the ANOVAs or EOS. But if I do full body shots, I work with the Titan. Does that answer the question?
Yes, lovely, thank you.
So we're doing another BTS of a car.
Yeah, okay.
With the Innova.
Yes.
This is a beautiful car, by the way. Wow.
Exactly. That's a Ford from 1938 or something. You could see the doors go different ways up like this. That was a very special situation for me. She's a very famous photographer in Germany. And she asked me to take a portrait of her. And I said, okay, I don't want to take a normal portrait. I would love to do some special portraits of you. So what you see here is what I told you before. This is this ugly garage where the other car was standing there as well, which we have been before. In this frame, you can see the walls, how ugly they are. You see frames on the walls, and you see different things. There are little trees on whatever. So the light set you see here is totally simple in the beginning, but I didn't shoot her in her face from a front. So what I did is, you see the open door on the right side, and my idea was to shoot through the doors. So I shoot from the right side through the door window, and I let her go a little bit more in the car. The reason for it, I will show you later on, is what I wanted to do that you don't see anything of the garage. The whole idea was I wanted the impression that the girl is sitting in the car. Yeah. So, and what I had to do, we had the questions in the beginning from Inga. Why do I put the light where it is right now? And you can see it's on 36%, so it's pretty bright normally. What I did is I overlit her face a little bit with the 63% to get the other lights around her darker. So what you normally do is as brighter your main light is, as more you can go down with the speed or with the aperture, so that the environment gets darker around her and she has the right light, because I didn't want to show all the shit in my frame. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So if you
Then
know the result now,
that lets me get out. Come on. There we go. Which is right here.
so here you see the frame.
Mhm.
So what you see is I go through the window, and as you can see, is there is in the middle you see the part of the two doors where the doors get locked. So I ask her to move a little bit back, but everything else you see, you don't see anything of the garage anymore, right? Even if we have lots of windows, we have on the left side a window, behind her is a window. So what I try to do is to bring as much light on her face, which I needed, and limited light around the environment around it. So, and you can see in her face, the rhodolite was still where, as you could see in front of her. And and the rest was the ambient light around, which I really brought down. And again, I shot it with 2.8 long lens, 200 millimeters. And yeah.
Wow. Ah,
One
gorgeous.
quick question while Pam gets another image up. Alan asks, do you always use continuous light?
Yeah, ambient light or continuous light. I don't use flashes, not at all. So sometimes for a client, if I have to do some fashion stuff and it has to go in a catalog or in a lookbook, and the client is really asking for real sharpness and lots of information, I use, we have a Breezer 220 here and we have a 140 here. So this Parabound, it's very simple. I'm not a good strobe guy. I have no clue how to use strobes. So I need a Parabound to give me a flat light out of the flash. Everything else, I'm absolutely autistic about it. I have no clue how to do it. So I use most of the time ambient light or the mixture of ambient light and continuous light.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Peter.
So as we start to close down, you have this video, a short little video that kind of goes back to some of the questions in the beginning, which is how you kind of set up the lights and set up the mood and things like that. So we're going to play a quick little video.
And while you bring it up, what you see here is it's also shot outside where we definitely need no lights at all.
Oh, sorry. Pause.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
It was with two actresses. We went to a lost place and we shot the whole stories in there. Perhaps you bring it just to the beginning.
Okay.
Just to just stop it before you start. Can you stop it somehow?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Just a couple words to it. You will see some crazy shit. We wanted to do some crazy things. So the girl you see here she's an upcoming famous actress in Germany. We want to do crazy things with balloons and ball dresses and everything. And inside we shot on the one side two girls in a ball situation where they went to one of the you find a piano in their ballroom and everything. Great scene. And then also how they moved up the stairs, and they can see how I used the flashlight of rhodolites, because I used only once in my life a flashlight of rhodolite, and that is the situation which you will see here. It's a very soft flash. It really worked well. And then finally, I created a scene where I put them in a male situation. The one girl at the end looks like a young man. It was a tribute to Helmut Newton's pictures, where he very often made his female actresses very masculine and androgen. So in the last scene was, but everything you see here, as soon as you see additional light or everything, it's only ANOVAs. So I had 3 ANOVAs at the place to create enough room for me. And when you see the ball scenes later on, there's a ballroom or dance hall, if you want to call it this way. Just for the audience who looks at it, this room has lots of windows. It's a large room, has lots of windows. But even if you think you have enough light at the piano, which you see in the movie, to shoot without the rhodolites, the girls at the piano, I should have used ISO 6400 by 2.8 and 400 speed to shoot it well. Then I used the rhodolites to give light to that piece of the light situation, adding to the ambient light. And I was able to shoot it with ISO 1600, f-stop 4, because I have 2 girls in it. I need a little bit more depth of field. And again, ISO 400, just to give you the idea, because in the movie, it looks like there's lots of light. Forget it. It just looks like there's a lot of light.
All right.
Okay, now let's start it. This is what I mean. You see, there's lots of light, but there's not lots of light. I think the internet connection is not the best.
Oh yeah, I can see it over on YouTube.
So what you perhaps could also see that there's lots of movement and fun and everything what we do there. And that's, again, for me, it's one of the most important things is, and my wife allows me to say so, a person in front of my camera is at that point the most important person in my life. Not my wife, not my son, not my parents. This person in front of my camera is the most important person. And my personal goal is, as you could see, perhaps the girls had fun, we had fun. It's all about relationship. If you want to take good pictures from people, you must be able to open your heart, to open your soul, and to get that trust. And that is all, again, about talking, about being by yourself. And again, I might have lots of followers on Instagram, but it doesn't make me a better human. Either it doesn't make me any richer or whatever. So it's stupid to think it's fame or something else. You're not more important than anyone else. Because if you shut down Instagram by tomorrow, no one knows who I am anymore. Very simple. Yeah. And if you put that in your head, it's all about human and human. And if someone is older, someone is younger, someone is more important, someone is less important. At the end, in front of your camera, there's only one truth, and that is both are humans, and we should act like humans. Yeah. So
I agree.
hopefully you could see a little bit. We have probably 2 pictures out of this shot. If you take
I've got.
Take this one here.
Mm-hmm.
You could see during the video, you could see the 3 rhodolites in a row and how they moved back and forth to that one. What you see here is the situation. You can see the window lights. If you look on the floor, you can see in the far back a light coming in the middle, the light coming in front of her feet, the light coming in. So that was the ambient light, which was already there. And the rhodolites, I had 2 rhodolites involved in this picture here. One was just 90 degrees looking straight to the 2 models. And one was in the right corner, lighting here the more masculine girl from her right side to lit. You can see the light on the ear and on the pieces in her pocket here, exactly there. So. Mm-hmm. And again, for me, was important, and perhaps the audience can tell me if you see it or don't see it. You can see where the ambient light comes from, and my idea is that you don't see that there's additional light there. So my whole idea is that the ambient light lit this picture.
And then we have the, let's see, where was the other one?
Well, Pam's getting that one up. Just a quick question. Bruce asks, do you rely on autofocus or manual focus while you're shooting?
Always autofocus. That's the only automatic I'm using. And I'm also I'm always on continuous focus. Yeah.
Cool.
So my camera is always on high speed, continuous focus, and autofocus is on. So again, this is not the best picture from the two girls. I just picked it just to show you again the light situation. As you could see in the movie, I had two rhodolights, one ANOVA and one EOS, to light these two girls. And again, as you could see the rest of the ambient light, you can see in the right corner the light coming in. I tried to give the whole light situation the feeling that it is only the ambient light in the room and that there's no additional light in it. And again, Pamela comes to the point, if you use a reflector or something else, you always find this one spot telling you, here's the reflector. Yeah, at least I'm bad in it, put it this way. If someone is perfect with the reflectors, you might be able to do so, but I can't.
Wow. I can't believe it's already been an hour. It kind of like went by fast. Yeah. Okay. So do we have any last minute questions before we wrap up?
Yes, we've got one question from Ricardo. How often do you use gels and filters while you're working?
Never.
Nice and quick.
That's a little trick. Just I want to share one trick with you, because the answer is probably not really. I used it once in my life. The thing is, if you want to do black and white, and let's say the rhodolite is your main source light, as we had it with the actors before, but in this case, I didn't use it. The one with the cigarette and the lady in front of, and in this case, I didn't use it because the projector did additional light in the room. But I had once the situation that the room was totally dark, it was raining outside, and the rhodolite was the only light I had. So if I do black and white, and the lady had a very greasy skin, so I had lots of reflections on her skin. The makeup artist was gone. I didn't have any powder, so it was getting greasy. So I had lots of reflections. So what I did is I put the whole light. I put the light on tungsten, the rhodolite. So that's 3,150 is the lowest or the warmest you can get in a rhodolite, and I add the orange gel to the rhodolite. Because what happens is that this orange light on the skin of the model takes away all the reds. And the reds are black and white. So what happened is I got a very soft skin, and I got a very more grayish skin and not a black skin. Yeah, so what I did is I used the light and I used the warmth of the light to take the red out of her skin to get a very good, more or less out of camp picture on her face. So for black and white shooters, little tip from my side: if your main light is an artificial light, use red filters or orange filters to reduce the reds in the faces.
Good tip. Well, Peter, we're at the end of our webinar this week, and what a joy to have you on. I just, so many good tips and inspiration, and sharing your images, your stories has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on this week. And are you in our Facebook group, our user group that we have? I don't know if you are or not.
Otherwise, it's easy to join and ask answer more questions if you like.
Yes, for those who aren't on,
having me was great.
Yes. So just just search for the Rhodolite user group. Really easy to find. We're a small but growing group, and we've got a lot of BTS and information and announcements and links to. I'll have a recorded video link of this if you missed any of this webinar.
Perfect. So, and as I said, if the audience or someone else has more questions, something else, I mean, Rebecca, we are all in contact, so you can forward them to me. I give you certainly more information, whatever you want to know.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining, and see you next time.
Wherever you are.
Bye-bye.